Hey YouTube, good morning, good afternoon. This is Tired Metalhead Weatherman. Hopefully you guys are doing well. In this one, we have an interesting situation beginning to develop as we now have an enhanced risk over parts of Texas and Oklahoma today. And then we have the slight risk out here towards the tri-state region. There's a little less confidence with this, and there's a little bit of uncertainty as well. We could see a little bit of everything here. There's potential for it, but it's very conditional as of right now. But there is extreme confidence that we're going to see some large hail over here towards Texas. Let's go ahead and take a look at the hazard types so you can see what I mean. So here's the categorical outlook here that we're looking at. We still have that marginal risk over here towards Louisiana, which includes Baton Rouge and New Orleans. This is going to have all three hazards possible. And oh, they've gone back up on the tornado threat here. See, these last few forecasts has been very difficult to keep up with because literally within the next update or so, they have been flip-flopping with the tornado threat in particular with this one. The potential's been there. I've kind of been seeing it, but the timing has been a big question. And right before I started the video here, I was kind of poring over data, and I did see a little bit of increased potential. But it's interesting how they pushed it back west too again. Depending on how these storms fire and if they can route to the warm front is going to be a key factor. We'll get into that in just a minute. There is an increased threat of damaging winds now over parts of Texas. This includes the Dallas Metroplex as well, by the way, and even parts of Arlington, other parts of Texas, Arlington, Plano, etc. Even getting into southern Oklahoma, we have an increased threat of damaging winds above 70 miles an hour here. Then over towards this region, there is a 15% area up, which is slight risk criteria for damaging winds. And then with the marginal risk, there is a 5% region there. The hail threat is big talk, of course. We have two hatched risk areas, especially a little further off towards the western end of the tri-state region. Iowa and parts of northern Missouri seem like the greatest points of interest. And then, of course, in our enhanced risk region, we have that 30% area and the hatched risk. So the greatest threat for hail is definitely going to exist across Texas. So this is going to be an interesting point right here that we're going to be looking at. I'm really invested in seeing what's going on there. We're going to go ahead and take a look at all the parameters here. This is for me looking a little earlier here, waiting for this model to finish loading. But we're going to start out by actually looking at the warm sector this time. So as you can see here, this is getting towards 23Z. So this is about 6-7 o'clock. And what we can see here, we even have a few 90-degree temperatures over towards Missouri today, which is pretty crazy. But right when we get towards about 7-8 o'clock, the storms will start to initiate. We'll start to lose the daytime heating as well, but still, even by about 8 Central Time, we're well into the 70s and 80s for a lot of areas here. Like I said, anywhere along that warm front where we can get any sort of routing going on there, we could probably get a few supercells and maybe a few tornadoes. Can't be ruled out. So that being said, by the time we get into the latter half of the evening and into the early morning hours, of course, we lose a lot of that daytime heating, so the instability will start to fall off here. I'm trying to get this to go. All right, this is as far as the run goes. Keep forgetting that's 18 hours. But let's look at our warm sector. Here's the moist sector. More than sufficient enough. And here's why I'm so interested in this area here. There's still plenty of low level spin here. It's even reflected on the both the temperature and especially on the dew points here. Look at that. Where I see that swirl is where I'm gonna guess is where the low pressure is at this point. But anywhere out ahead of that, off to the eastern and southeastern flank, I could see some trouble occurring there. The timing, again, is going to be a key factor with this. We talked about the wind field or the kinematics, so to speak, and we're seeing a good indicator right here. And this is actually some of the best hodograph that I've seen so far today in regards to tornado potential. And this has a pretty good look to it. Not the highest STP I've seen, but considering what we're working up against with this pattern for tornadoes. This is pretty impressive, I would say. A lot of instability, a lot of surface cape available, so that's one telltale sign that there is some pretty good potential with this. The storm relative felicity is pretty good. The lift index is pretty good. I'm starting to nerd out here. Let me snap out of it. But overall, this has got some pretty good potential with it if these storms are able to thrive in this environment. Also, note the hail potential here as well. There's plenty of analogs for significant hail. So all hazards are still possible in this region. Not enhanced risk criteria, but nonetheless, it's still something to keep an extra close eye on if you're over towards the tri-state region today. This moist sector persists all the way into Sunday morning, and Sunday is another day that I'm going to keep a close eye on. I'll probably do a video on that tonight. In comparison, though, let's go ahead and actually take a look at Texas here real quick. I figure looking at the temperature for Texas is pretty much a moot point, really, because we already know that those 80s and 90s have made their way all the way up towards the tri-state region. So we can already imagine what the temperatures are going to be here. And the dew points are absolutely ridiculous out here. And I can only imagine what the lapse rates are. We're actually going to go ahead and take a look at those. I rarely do normally because they aren't the most impactful when it comes to tornadic development. But this is a spectacle to see, honestly. I clicked the wrong area here, interestingly enough. Hazard type is none. But even so, you can just look at, if you actually know a good bit about weather and how to read these SQT charts, you can see the immense lapse rates here. Lapse rates here are usually indicated by the space in between the red and the green line here. The green line being the dew point and the red line being temperature. Hope I got that order right. I think I might have said it wrong. If I did, feel free to correct me on that one. I'm a little bit tired and I haven't eaten breakfast yet. Just woke up a little bit ago, actually. Another thing to note here, there is a good bit of what's called decape. Decape usually is often associated with damaging wind potential. I'm not entirely sure what that term means as of yet, so I'm not going to act like I do. But usually when the decape is high, usually damaging wind potential is high. So I'm definitely interested in seeing what happens there. We will be going live today on this channel, by the way. And here is the really impressive dry line here, by the way, too. Right where you see these 50s and 60s, and then that quick drop off from 65 to like 34. That's a pretty dramatic drop. So these storms over here towards this region are going to be pretty strong. Tornado potential is pretty limited, though. But we're going to try to see if we can find another sounding here. Marginal severe, but ridiculous decape, ridiculous surface cape, 4,000 joules per kilogram, explosive environment. It's not really going to take much for any of these storms in this region to go severe. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take this back into full view here. We'll look at the national picture, and then we'll take a look at the lapse rates, which are going to be crazy to see. Then we'll go ahead and also take a look at the we'll also go ahead and take a look at maybe some significant tornado parameters. I don't expect to see impressive numbers with that, but the cape is a different story. Or not the cape, but the lapse rates are a different story. So here we are over our areas of interest here. We already have some pretty impressive numbers. We're already at 8.3. Usually at about 6 is when things start to really pop off here. But there is a lot of lapse rate here. There's impressive lapse rate here of 9, which is not what you see every day. And as we head towards O1Z, which would be about 8 o'clock for these regions, which will be peak time for these storms to develop, just incredible lapse rates over towards Texas and Oklahoma. Pretty sufficient lapse rates over here towards the tri-state region where we're getting towards 7.5. Once you get towards 7, 8, you can get some crazy numbers as far as, you can get some crazy development as far as hail and tornadoes even. Lapse rates are somewhat relevant to tornadoes, but not quite to the same extent. It can be determining as far as what kind of supercellular mode you could end up getting, high precip or low precip. I have to kind of look into that one more as well. I'm geeking out again. I got to snap out of it. But that being said, let's go ahead and now look at the significant tornado parameter. There's not going to be any super high values. Okay. Well, this is new. This little area that's popped up here. So 4.1. It's pretty impressive. This is actually a very similar sounding to what we saw earlier here. So this might be worthwhile. This actually indicates a 5. And there's not much of a cap that would stop this either. So very interesting here. Like I said, we will be going live. Most likely will be around 6 o'clock, I would say, or 6 o'clock my time. And actually, this is some of the highest numbers I've seen yet. And this is on a pretty reliable model, so that's very interesting stuff here. I don't know if the storms will fire that far to the south, but if that comes into play here, we could have some pretty notable problems. There is a capping inversion right here, though, which could limit development. And that's exactly what I was thinking would happen, but to see the parameter there was pretty interesting. But as we head towards that tri-state line, that's another thing to keep a close eye on here. Then, of course, with this region here, given the high dew points, the instability, etc., you can get spin-ups, but it's not going to quite be anything that would concern me, so to speak. Kinematically speaking, this area is this area towards Texas is a lot less impressive in comparison to this area here over towards the tri-state line. Nonetheless, though, still have to keep an extra close eye on that. But overall, though, as far as today is concerned, it could be pretty crazy. It'll be interesting to see how things develop here. But I'm going to go ahead and end this video here and try to start prepping for the live stream. And I hope to see you guys there. If you liked this video and any be sure to watch some of the other videos. I have a lot of them, close to 500 now. And of course, let's break the algorithm, smash that like button, shred the subscribe button, and comments, of course. Definitely want to flood the comments and melt the share button too, because this is going to be an active pattern. We'll get into that in another video though. But anyway, this has been Metalhead Weatherman. Enough rambling. I'll see you guys soon.